The train was unusually crowded that evening. Rush hour in the city always felt suffocating, bodies pressed against each other, tired faces staring into their phones, and the low hum of wheels scraping against the tracks. Daniel, a 34-year-old single dad, held his daughter's pink backpack tightly in one hand. Emma had just started 3rd grade, and she insisted on choosing the bag herself. Bright pink with unicorns, because it makes me feel magical, Daddy. He smiled every time he carried it, as if the little backpack reminded him of why he endured the exhaustion of balancing work and fatherhood alone. Emma wasn't with him now, she was at her grandmother's house for the night. Daniel, for once, had a quiet commute. Or at least, he thought he did. The train jolted to a stop at the next station, and a wave of passengers spilled in. Among them was a young woman in her 20s, clutching her phone in a trembling hand. She slipped into the corner near Daniel. At first glance, nothing seemed unusual. But Daniel's instinct sharpened. He had learned to read body language well since Emma's birth. The girl's shoulders were tense, her eyes darting nervously toward the opposite side of the carriage. Following her gaze, Daniel noticed a man, a tall, broad figure, standing too close despite the space around them. His stare was fixed on her, unblinking, predatory. Daniel's gut twisted. The young woman shifted her weight, inching subtly closer to Daniel. Then she did something strange. She lifted her phone, pretending to scroll, but her thumb traced a faint pattern across the screen as if drawing letters only someone attentive might notice. Daniel's eyes caught the movement. She wasn't scrolling, she was tracing the word, help. His chest tightened. The man's eyes flickered toward Daniel for the briefest second, suspicious, before returning to the girl. Daniel's protective instinct roared awake. He bent slightly, lowering his voice so only she could hear. Do you know him? Her lips barely parted. A whisper escaped. He's been following me since the last station. Daniel nodded once, calmly, though his pulse thundered. He had been in tense situations before, late-night bar fights, confrontations on the street, but this felt heavier. This was about someone's safety. The train rocked, and the man moved closer, his shoulder brushing against the young woman's arm. She flinched. Daniel shifted immediately, stepping between them. Hey, do you want to sit down? He asked her, his voice steady but loud enough for the man to hear. He gestured to the small empty seat beside him. The girl's eyes widened with gratitude. She nodded quickly and slid into the seat. Daniel stayed standing, now a shield between her and the man. The predator's eyes narrowed, a flash of irritation crossing his face. Daniel kept his gaze steady, not confrontational yet, but warning enough. He didn't look away. The man smirked, muttered something under his breath, and shifted slightly to the side. But Daniel knew that wasn't the end of it. He'd seen that look before, men who thought they owned control, who hated being challenged. The train screeched into the next station. More people poured in, filling the gaps. Daniel used the opportunity to whisper to the girl again. Stay close. When we get off, stick with me. She swallowed, her eyes wet with unshed tears. Thank you. Daniel nodded. What's your name? Lena, she whispered. Okay, Lena, I'm Daniel. He kept his voice calm, almost casual, as though this were just a normal conversation. But inside, his every nerve was on fire. The man had moved further down the carriage but was still watching. Daniel caught the reflection of his stare in the train window, cold, calculating. When the announcement for the next major station rang out, Daniel made his choice. He reached for Lena's hand. We're getting off here. She nodded quickly, gripping his hand like a lifeline. As the doors opened, they stepped out into the crowded platform. Relief washed over Lena's face for a second, until Daniel glanced back. The man had followed them out. The platform buzzed with the noise of hundreds of feet, announcements blaring overhead, and trains arriving one after another. But despite the crowd, Daniel felt as if the space around him had shrunk. The man was still there. His shadow clung to them, his stare cold and unyielding. Lena clutched Daniel's arm. He's not leaving, she whispered, her voice trembling. Daniel's eyes flicked toward the man. He didn't hide his pursuit. He stalked after them with a predator's patience, never letting the distance grow too wide. Daniel's gut twisted. This wasn't some random creep. He was deliberate. Stay close to me, Daniel said firmly. He guided her toward the escalator, weaving through the commuters. But no matter how many people passed between them, the man always reappeared, steady as a shadow. At the top of the escalator, Daniel slowed just enough to whisper, "We'll head for the exit. There's a police booth near the main street." Lena nodded quickly, though fear etched deeper lines into her face. You don't understand, if he sees me talking to police, her voice cracked. Daniel didn't press yet, he just squeezed her hand. Then we'll get there quietly. Trust me. They moved swiftly, but as they neared the glass doors leading outside, Daniel's instinct screamed. He glanced back. The man had quickened his pace. And then Daniel saw it, his hand slipped inside his jacket, fingers curling around something hidden. Adrenaline surged through Daniel's body. He yanked Lena toward the side, pulling her into the cover of a pillar just as the man emerged from the crowd. His hand remained in his jacket, suspicious, threatening. Daniel stepped forward, placing himself squarely in the man's path. His voice was steady but firm, loud enough to be heard over the rush of commuters. Stop following her. The man's lips twisted into a smile. This isn't your business. His voice was low, oily. It is now, Daniel said. His stance widened slightly, protective. She doesn't want you near her. The man tilted his head, eyes narrowing. You think you can protect her? You don't even know who she is. Daniel didn't flinch. I don't have to. I know enough. Behind him, Lena's breathing quickened. Daniel, please. The man's gaze flickered toward her, and in that split second Daniel noticed something, fear in Lena's eyes, yes, but also guilt. Something she wasn't saying. The man chuckled darkly. You've got no idea what you're stepping into, do you? She isn't what she looks like. Daniel didn't care about riddles. What he cared about was the way Lena was trembling, and the way the man's hand hadn't left his jacket. Security cameras blinked above. Crowds kept moving. Daniel knew he had a choice, either escalate this in the open or get Lena somewhere safer. Move, Daniel said, his voice like stone. The man's smile widened, but for now, he didn't advance. He slid his hand back out of his jacket, empty, and raised it mockingly. Fine, walk her out, but she can't run forever. He turned away, melting back into the flow of commuters, disappearing as quickly as he had appeared. Lena collapsed against the pillar, trembling. Daniel steadied her, his heart still pounding. You need to tell me the truth, he said gently but firmly. Who is he? Her lips trembled. He's my ex's brother. My ex was violent, controlling. When I finally escaped, his family swore I'd regret it. That man has been following me for weeks. He waits, outside my job, outside my apartment. He doesn't stop. Daniel exhaled slowly. It all made sense now. The predatory stare, the persistence, the threat. This wasn't just harassment. It was intimidation. Why didn't you go to the police? Daniel asked. Her eyes filled with tears. I tried, but they said unless he hurt me, they couldn't do much. A restraining order would take weeks. Meanwhile, he watches me everywhere I go. And tonight, he looked different. Angrier. I thought. She broke off, shaking violently. Daniel's chest tightened. He imagined Emma in Lena's place, terrified, hunted, ignored. The thought made his blood boil. All right, he said firmly. You're not alone anymore. We'll fix this. Her eyes widened. Why would you help me? You don't even know me. Daniel gave a small, tired smile. Because I know what it means to need someone to stand up for you. My daughter depends on me every day. If she were in your place, I'd pray someone would help her too. Tears spilled down Lena's cheeks. For the first time that night, relief softened her features. They left the station together, keeping close to the busier streets. Daniel stayed alert, scanning every shadow, every corner. But the man didn't reappear. Not yet. When they reached a small cafe, Daniel guided her inside. The warm light and chatter felt safer, at least temporarily. He ordered 2 coffees, though Lena's hands shook too much to drink hers. You need to stay somewhere safe tonight, Daniel said. Do you have family nearby? She shook her head. No, I moved here for work. My parents are across the country. Then you'll stay with my mother and daughter tonight, Daniel decided. It's secure. She won't mind. Lena's eyes widened. I can't intrude like that. You can, Daniel said firmly. Until we figure something else out. For a moment, silence stretched between them. Then Lena nodded slowly, gratitude shining through her fear. They finished the coffees in silence, both scanning the windows for any sign of pursuit. When they finally left, the city streets were calmer, the night deepening. Daniel drove his old sedan toward his mother's house, Lena sitting quietly in the passenger seat. Halfway there, headlights flared in the mirror. A dark car trailing too close. Daniel's grip on the wheel tightened. His instinct screamed. Lena turned, her face paling. That's him, The car stayed glued to their tail, even as Daniel changed lanes. His pulse raced. He couldn't risk leading the man to Emma. "Hold on," Daniel muttered. He veered suddenly, taking a sharp turn down a busier street. The car followed. Another turn. Still there. Lena's breath quickened. "What do we do?" Daniel's jaw clenched. "We end this." He spotted a police cruiser parked at a late-night convenience store. Heart pounding, he swung the sedan into the lot, braking hard. The trailing car slowed at the corner, watching. Daniel jumped out, waving to the officers. "Help, we're being followed." The cruiser's doors opened, officers stepping out, alert. The dark car hesitated under the streetlight, then sped off, tires screeching. "License plate," one officer barked. Daniel rattled it off from memory, adrenaline still coursing. The officers promised to run it, to patrol the area, but Daniel knew this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Men like that didn't stop because of flashing lights. But as he slid back into the driver's seat, he looked at Lena, shaken, but alive. And he knew one thing for certain. He would not let her face this alone. Not tonight, not ever again.